And we're back with another episode of TED Talk Stamps. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. And this episode is, as you can tell by the title, is just a few philatelic tidbits that I have. Not a full program on any one topic. And to begin with, I will share some viewer mail that I got recently, starting with this postcard sent by Karen. And this is actually what's called a PHQ card. Let me show you the other side first. You see the stamp matches the stamp on the design on the front. And like I said, this is a PHQ card that Royal Mail issues for each of the commemoratives. And this one depicts what's called tonlet armor from 1520. And this was actually King Henry VIII's armor suit. Tonlet armor, as you'll notice, it looks like a skirt on the armor. And that's because that's exactly what it is, a skirt, to give more protection to the legs during combat. And what I at first thought was Royal Mail canceling the stamp on the front of the card. No, that is the receiving postmark from Portugal. It left England on February 28th, according to the postmark there, and it arrived in Portugal March 6th. Those 6 days to get here. Thank you very much, Karen. I really appreciate that. I've got a small collection of PHQs going now, and I will share those in a future episode, show you all that I've gotten so far. Another piece of mail I got came from Daniel, and he sent a little packet of Germania stamps of Germany. I was thrilled to get these because I have a little side collection going where I make a calendar, 12 album pages, one for each month, a calendar for each month, and I am finding a date to go for each day of the year using only Germania stamps. A postmark calendar isn't, particularly a particularly novel idea. I've seen them on stamp boards where the community as a whole is filling in the dates. But like I said, I'm using only Germania stamps, and Germany in particular, because they make most of their postmarks, their circular date stamps, are quite clear. As you can see with these stamps I found with just a quick perusal of the lot, get nice clear dates. There's a April 24th, a June 13th, July 7th, October 22nd, and a November 25th. So that's going to be fun, looking through the rest of those and finding more dates that I need. So thank you very much, Daniel. I really appreciate the gift of the stamps. Okay, quick quiz. What's the first commemorative stamp or stamp set that was ever issued? Probably the first thing that comes to people's mind is the United States Columbian issues of 1893. However, that's not even close to being the first commemoratives. 5 years earlier, in 1888, New South Wales territory in Australia, of course, celebrated its 100th anniversary of its establishment as a territory. And they issued this set of stamps. There are 6 designs, except for the first one being a government-designed seal of the colony. The other 5 were all chosen from a stamp design contest held for the set. But that's not the first commemorative set either. 18 years before that, in 1870, Peru issued this stamp that's been nicknamed by philatelists the Trencito, or Little Train. It commemorates the 20th anniversary of the establishment of this train line, which ran from Lima. As you can see in the top margin, it's inscribed Lima, and on the left and right margins, there are the inscriptions of two other cities, Chorrillos, which was a beach resort town, and on the other side we see Callao, which was a major seaport. This railway was just the second railway in all of Latin America, the first one being established in British Guiana. Now, most catalogs give the issue date as being in 1871. However, I saw on some wiki page that some stamp experts have found covers which have been expertized and authenticated, indicating that the stamp was actually issued in April of 1870. So, Peru Scott number 19, SG21 or Michel 16B, is the first commemorative stamp issued. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, I've never really taken a deep dive into the stamps of Great Britain. I haven't studied them closely and learned the ins and outs. But I think we're all familiar with at least the names of the printers. We have Bradbury Wilkinson, De La Rue, Waterlow and Sons are probably the three classic printers of Great Britain's stamps. But it surprised me recently to learn that all three have worked on one set before. I've just been under the assumption before that Royal Mail came up with an idea for a stamp set and then just farmed it out to one printer or another. However, in 1938, Fiji put out an 18 stamp set of definitives whose designs were divided up among all three printers. Same thing happened with Cayman Islands in 1938. They put out a 12 stamp set that was worked on by each of the three printers. And then in 1939, Gilbert and Ellice Islands issued a new set of 12 definitives that was also split up among the three printers. And that's the one I want to really concentrate on here because it's really a gorgeous set. Now, not only did three printers work on all of the stamps, each printer put its own distinctive design characteristics into the stamps. And all of the designs, all of the pictorial designs, one of them has the coat of arms, but the other 11, all the vignettes are based off of drawings made by the schoolmaster of Ocean Island. Now, these three that were printed by Bradbury Wilkinson, they all feature the king's profile in an oval frame with a crown on top of the oval frame and rather large text at the top and the bottom, which kind of cuts into the amount of real estate left for the image, for the vignette. So then looking at the next set from De La Rue, they utilized the same size oval and king's profile, but then moved it up into the corner and eliminated the bottom text with the denomination spelled out. So that gave you a lot more room for the actual image on the stamp. And then the third designer, Waterlow and Sons, they designed 5 stamps. And as you can see, the actual stamps are not as long as the stamps from the other two printers. And so that makes the design area that much smaller. But overall, the colors on these, the engraving, the designs, it's all really top notch, and it just makes for a really gorgeous set. And down below you can see I've given you the catalog numbers, so you'll be able to find them on your favorite stamp site. So that's a look at Gilbert and Ellis Islands Definitives of 1939, one stamp set, 3 stamp printers. Now, most of you know, I've talked about it enough, that one of my topical collecting areas is classical music on stamps. And classical music covers more than just the Western uh, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart music. It also encompasses Eastern music and Chinese classic opera. And recently I obtained this souvenir sheet from Republic of China. This is a souvenir sheet of that accompanied the 4 stamp set issued in 1999 on classic Chinese opera. And here is a Google translation overlaid over that. The title is Chinese Classical Drama Stamps. And below that, you see some text for the Taipei International Stamp Exhibition of 1999. Now, this souvenir sheet was originally issued without the stamp exhibition overprint. It just has the main title there and is blank below that. Then for the stamp exhibition, they just ran some of the souvenir sheets back through the press and imprinted the stamp exhibition text onto it. Hard to say how many of each exist now, but the Scott catalog values them both equally, with or without the stamp exhibition overprint at $3.50 catalog value. But what I like about this sheet is just the exquisite artwork and the production values of this sheet. For instance, here's a 2400 DPI scan of the sheet, so you really get a good magnification. And it's just incredible to me the gradations of color. Just look how it just blends in from the dark green to the gold to the orange, and it just makes for a beautiful effect. Now, on the China Post website, they say that this sheet was produced by deep etch lithography. Or actually, they say deep etch offset, which means offset lithography. Now, I never heard of deep etch lithography before, so I had to go look it up. Now, you're probably familiar with normal lithography. An image is put onto a plate, and the image is created with a greasy and oily medium, and then all areas of the printing plate that do not get any kind of image, that are left blank, are treated with a chemical that attracts water and repels the oil-based ink, so that when the ink is spread onto the plate, it only sticks to the oil-treated image area. So regular lithography is just strictly a surface printed process. However, in deep etch lithography, they actually etch the design into the surface of the plate, just a tiny bit. In fact, it's such a shallow etch that it doesn't even leave a raised ridge of ink like you see on engraved stamps. But what it does is allows for greater detail in the image, and it prolongs the life of the plate so you can have larger print runs. Okay, so as noted, this sheet is for classic Chinese opera, and each of the stamps, there's 4 stamps, and they depict 4 classic operas from the Ming Dynasty. And the Ming Dynasty lasted from 1368 until 1644. I'll just briefly give you the names of the operas. The first stamp depicts a scene from the opera Washing Silken Gauze, while the second one is the tale of the pipa. And the pipa is a stringed lute-like instrument, as you can see on the right side of this stamp design here. And the third stamp is from a love story called The Story of Hong Fu, while the fourth one depicts a scene from the opera, and I hope my wife's not listening to my terrible pronunciation. This comes from the opera Pa Yue Pavilion. Pa Yue means the moon worshipping pavilion, where you would go and pray to the moon. So then the last thing I want to just mention briefly in this episode is I'd like to tell you about my Substack page. For those of you who aren't familiar, Substack is a publishing platform that's being adopted by a lot of bloggers, a lot of novel writers and short story writers too, who publish their works onto Substack. And I moved my own blog to Substack, and there are several philatelic writers who are publishing on Substack as well. So here's my homepage, and okay, on the first square at the top, you see that's my latest post, and then it shows you a thumbnail for the latest post from Katherine Johnson, a stamp collector in Twin Cities, Minnesota. The next one shows you a Substack called Philatelic Curated. The author stack is a one for authors. And then the next one is Postal History Sunday. I'm sure you're all familiar with Wayne Youngblood, a prominent philatelist in our community. He also has a Substack called Wayne Youngblood's Substack, so you should check him out. And so check out, I have a link to my Substack in the description below. And if you go to my Substack page, you can also find who I follow. So you'll find all the other philatelic Substacks, and then you can easily subscribe to them. So I encourage you to check out Substack and see all the philatelic writing that's available there. So that'll cover it for this episode. It's still fairly early in the year, and a lot of countries have voting for favorite stamp or most beautiful stamp of the year, and I've been trying to find results for those without too much luck, I should say, too. But so in a few more days, I hope to have an episode ready where I can show you some of the most beautiful stamps that have been voted on for other countries. So until then, this is Ted the Talking Stamp Collector wishing you all happy stamping.